Now here we go again with episode 5 of building the TotalBoat Sport Dory. Now we've got a few of the sections set up on a strong back here, and we're just kind of assembling it as we go, and we've got 3 more to put on there. Now I've added 2 vertical legs to section number 2 here, just like the other sections behind it, and they help position it. So all we have to do is move it into position and fasten it off to our strong back, and then we're going to move over, take care of number 1. So there you have it. That is basically the whole jig assembled right there. There's a few more pieces to add to it. We're going to add a piece underneath right down the middle, but you can see how important it was for me to put all the crossballs in exactly the right height on the molds, because they line up with the strong back here. That keeps everything lined up this way. And the legs were obviously put on exactly the same distance from center line on each one, so that lines up that way. And you can sight the center lines looking right over the top or just about anywhere. Looking right up the middle, right up in here, is the easiest place to sight the center lines right there. And they look really nice. So I'm going to add 1 board underneath, like a 2x8, underneath everything that extends out all the way to the head of the transom, and on the other end to the head of the stem to keep that in line. And it's going to have like a slot cut right in here in this last section for the stem to sit in. And obviously it's looking a little wide on the bottom right here, because basically what you've got here is a new false bottom that's going to go on here, and that's 1 1/8 inches thick. So 3 layers of 3/8 plywood. And then when you get to the actual bottom of the boat, maybe another 1 1/8 inches, it'll be way in here. So the bottom is only about so wide, even though the molds right now show it to be a little bit wider than that. So everything's added onto the outside of it actually. So, you know, and people obviously have asked me questions about why it is that I didn't loft the longitudinal lines on this boat, you know, on a loft floor. And well, there's a reasoning behind it. I didn't want to crawl around on the floor doing it. That is one of the big reasons. And the other thing is that I didn't think it would do me a whole lot of good, because the way I arrived at these stations and the way I drew this boat, I knew it didn't have a whole lot of error in it. And it was actually done by designing it on the planking lines rather than buttock lines or water lines. So it's kind of a new concept to come up with the same sort of shape, but it's just a little bit different procedure, and it was easy for me to do it. And basically what I've done is I've set all the sections all up, and then I'm kind of lofting it on the outside by stretching battens over it to see if they all line up really, really nice, and make sure the bevels that I lifted and everything fit exactly the way I wanted them to fit. So basically right now it's set up, it's to bevel. You know, you can see these nails I've put in here. I've already put battens down the planking lines right here, and I'll show you a real special thing about the way we put the battens on it. I've had these molds set up one time already, and I've put these battens in position. Now I just want to say that I haven't nailed the battens down. What I've done is nailed alongside the battens, and sometimes I've folded one of the nails over on top of the batten to hold it down, but I don't want to nail the battens down, and I don't want to impede the batten from rolling up on its edge if that's what it wants to do. Now I'm just going around the whole boat sighting it here on this one side, and I'm sighting it to see if the battens are nice and true, or if they're kinked in any way, or if any one plank looks too wide or too narrow. I know they're all divided exactly right. That's the way I set it up. But I just want to make sure if they look right from the half-bridge view, or from the side view, or the top view, or comparative to each other, or anything else. This is the opportunity right here to fair the boat in all respects. Not only the shape of the boat, but the planking lines as well. Now I'm just finishing sighting some of the battens up, especially the batten right at the shear plank right here. And it really, really looks nice, and I took a lot of time in the drawings to get that to look like that. The other thing I'd like to show you is, you see the batten here, it isn't even nailed down, it's just nailed alongside of it. And I can move it around a little bit, but it doesn't take much to get it to go back to where it belongs there. It wants to cooperate all by itself. And like I say, it lays down flat, and what that is an indication that the edge of this plank that I'm going to saw, the shear plank, that it is going to have a fairly straight edge on one edge of it, the top edge of it right here. And if it didn't, or if it wasn't going to be that way, then this plank, or this batten would want to roll like this. Now this one's kind of laying down exactly the same way as well, so that means that the top edge of this plank is going to be nice and straight too. So it's pretty nice because I know that I can cut a plank that's going to go full length from one end of the boat all the way to the other, and also be quarter sawn with the annual rings going through it this way here. So pretty nice situation right here. Now here's one amidships that does not lie flat, and like I say, I haven't nailed the batten down flat, and I probably couldn't because it's really not cooperating at all unless you let it roll up like this. Now, we nailed one edge of it, or we positioned one edge on the line right here where it belongs, and we used it for sighting purposes, and it worked perfect for that, but the space underneath it right here is an indication that the edge of this plank that we put right here is not going to be straight at all. Otherwise, the batten would cooperate and lay right down flat pretty easily. So, you know, these battens indicate all kinds of different things about how you might have to get your planks out and how wide they might have to be and all kinds of different things like that. But ultimately, the way we get the plank shape is by laying the plank right on there and transferring the marks onto the back of the plank. It's a pretty simple situation, but this gives us some ideas. It really does. It's going to have quite a curvature in it, and I know that I'm going to have to provide for that with the material that I plank the boat with. So, you know, I knew that this was going to be this way. That's the way these boats are. Joe and I are clamping a 2x8 underneath the crossballs right now. Now I've straightened that 2x8 out really nicely on both sides and center lined it, and we're lining the center line of it up with the center line on the crossballs. And that will keep all the molds lined up with each other very, very nicely. Now Joe and I are going to take a batten and we're going to wrap it around the molds and show you how we check the beveling on the molds. Now you can see right here that the batten's bearing a little bit heavy on this side of the mold and not touching that side of the mold. So I'm going to take a little bit of material off of this side with an electric plane. Let's move up and test the top of it here. Now it bears down really nicely at the top, so I don't have to do anything up there. Let's test the next one down. Okay, right in here. Same thing here. This one's bearing a little bit on this side right here, not touching the black magic marker line on the other side. We're going to move down a little bit more. And it's got the same scenario going on right here. So on this position right here, on this surface, I'm going to take a little bit off of this side, tune it up really nice and smooth, and check it again after I'm done. Now I'm just taking a very few strokes with the power plane on each one of these surfaces, and you got to be careful here. You don't want to take away that black line because we don't want to take anything off of that side, and we want to take very little off the other side, so a few strokes should do it. Now let's pick up our batten and just see how well it fits at this point. We're going to stretch it around there and push it right down, and look at that, it bears right across that whole surface perfectly. Now we're going to move it up a little bit and just try it right in here. Look at that, just as nice as can be. Now we're going to go around the corner and try it on this plank, and look at that, there it is, just as nice as can be there as well, and all the way at the top, and those two surfaces are done just like that. Okay, that one looks good, Joe. Let's move it up a little tiny bit, just about like so. And that looks good too. All right, that's good, both of them. Very good. Now I'm going to do some of this one up forward. There's a lot to take off of that one. Now Joe and I are going to continue right along here with this heavier batten, pushing it up against the sections and seeing if it compares properly with the angle. And you know, some of them might need a little bit more work than others, and if I think it needs any amount of removal, I'll put a little pencil line alongside, because as I plane it, I can take wood away awfully fast, and I can't really tell how much wood I've taken unless I have a little reference line there. So I'll put a little reference line and then make a few strokes, look at the reference line, make a few more, and stop when I get near that line. So I know I've taken a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch or whatever it is. On this after section and on the forward section as well, I cut these sections out at 90 degrees because I didn't want to go through having to lift the bevel off the body plane. It would have been another difficult process. So I cut them out at 90 degrees, and I'm just planing them to bevel with an electric plane. And I'm using that line technique on the side so that I don't get too carried away. And once in a while you'll see me actually dub into the black line, the magic marker line on the surface, because that whole surface needs to be trued up and all the saw marks taken off of it. But at the same time, I'm working that whole surface towards that pencil line that you can see on the side of the section right there, because that is the planking line. I want to have these two surfaces arrive at that planking line and have the proper bevel at the same time. So we've got all our bevels on the port side touched up here, and we're not going to do any more work on them until we do set our stem up and our stern up. Then we'll touch up the forward and the after section just a tiny bit more later on. But I wanted to show you that I have this 2x8 in the middle here, and it's on top of these barrows. I keep saying on top and below, but this is really on top of the crossballs right here, and it's extending out past the after section to support the transom. It's also extending forward of the forward section here to support the stem. It'll have like a slot cut in it where the stem will be inserted. It'll also have a slot cut in this mold right here where the stem will be inserted in that, just to hold it nice and steady. And so that's most of it right there. We are going to put a false bottom on it right here, 1.125 inches of plywood. That's still part of the molds, but one of the things I wanted to tell you is that this is a production set of molds right here. It's not to build one boat. And it's not the way Sport Dories were built. They were built over their own frames. They'd have like a hackmatack knee in place of this section right here and in place of this section, but they could be placed anywhere in the boat. And we didn't want to go through that trouble. It's going to be a bent frame boat, so we've set the sections up the way we wanted to set them up, and we're almost done with it. Now the last thing I've got for you today is a couple of announcements. We're going to be at Filson's Clothing Store this weekend, Saturday the 23rd, from noon to 3 o'clock. We're going to be doing a little chainsaw shopping demonstration, and it'll be a great opportunity for you to meet me and for me to meet you. So come in and see us down there. The only other thing I have for you is next week is going to be our first question and answer video of the series. So I want you to send in all the questions that you can muster up about the dory here, about the jig, about the way I'm going to proceed with it, about the skiff that we built, you know, just about anything, about any of our videos or where we're going with our business, and I'll do the best I can to answer all of it.